Millionaire CEO spots twins selling toy car for mom's treatment, changes their fate forever. Welcome to Love Scene, Diarians, where we bring you stories that touch your heart and remind you why love is the greatest adventure of all. Today's story will take you on an emotional journey that proves sometimes fate works in mysterious ways, bringing together lives that were meant to intersect. The Seattle rain painted the city in shades of gray as Marcus Blackwood's Bentley glided through the congested streets of downtown. Inside the luxury cocoon, the 38-year-old CEO of Blackwood Technologies stared at the quarterly reports on his tablet, his expression unreadable. The numbers were exceptional. Another record-breaking quarter. Yet the victory felt hollow. "Traffic's particularly bad today, sir," his chauffeur noted, glancing in the rearview mirror. "We might be delayed for your meeting." Marcus barely nodded, his mind already calculating the implications of being late. His empire had been built on precision and control. He'd learned long ago that sentiment was a luxury he couldn't afford, not after watching his sister die despite all the money his parents had scraped together for her treatment. Something flickered at the edge of his vision, a splash of color against the monochrome backdrop of the rainy afternoon. Without understanding why, Marcus looked up from his tablet. There, huddled beneath a makeshift shelter of cardboard and plastic, stood two small figures in bright yellow raincoats. Twin boys, perhaps 8 years old, their faces bearing identical expressions of solemn determination. Between them sat something that seemed oddly out of place. A vintage toy car, meticulously preserved despite its age. A hand-painted sign propped against it read, "Toy car for sale, help our mom." The boy whispered something to his brother, who nodded and adjusted the car's position, making sure it was visible to passers-by. Their movements revealed a synchronicity that spoke of a bond deeper than words. Marcus found himself unable to look away. Have you ever experienced that strange moment when something unexpectedly catches your attention and somehow you just know, your life is about to change forever? Share your experiences in the comments below, because I believe these moments of unexpected connection are what make life truly magical. As the Bentley crawled forward in traffic, Marcus should have returned to his reports. The meeting with Japanese investors wouldn't prepare itself. Yet his eyes remained fixed on the twins, their small shoulders squared against the weight of whatever burden they carried. The car was now directly alongside them. Through the rain-streaked window, Marcus could see the toy more clearly. A vintage Aston Martin DB5, identical to the one his father had given him before everything fell apart. "Stop the car," Marcus said suddenly, his voice cutting through the silence. "Sir." The chauffeur's surprised eyes met his in the mirror. "I said stop the car now." As the Bentley pulled to the curb, Marcus reached for the door handle, something he hadn't done for himself in years. He couldn't explain the compulsion driving him toward these children, but in that moment, Marcus Blackwood, the man Forbes had called brilliantly cold, followed an impulse that would alter not just his fate, but the lives of a struggling nurse and her brave children forever. The twins looked up in unison as Marcus approached, his Italian leather shoes splashing through puddles he'd normally avoid. His security detail moved to follow, but he waved them back with a subtle gesture. "That's quite a car you have there," Marcus said, crouching down to their level despite the rain soaking through his $5,000 0-cents suit. Up close, the children's resemblance was striking. Same hazel eyes, same determined set to their small jaws. The boy shifted slightly, positioning himself half a step in front of his sister. "It's vintage," he stated, his voice carrying a protective edge. "Our grandpa gave it to us before he went to heaven." "Cack," the girl whispered, nudging him gently before turning to Marcus with a smile that revealed a missing front tooth. "What my brother means is that it's very special, but we're selling it anyway. Are you interested, sir?" Marcus studied the toy car, memories washing over him with unexpected force. The same model, the same silver-blue paint. His father had saved for months to buy it for his 10th birthday, before cancer took his sister and debt took everything else. "I might be," he replied, his voice softer than usual. but I'm curious why you're selling something so special, especially in this weather." The girl, Emma, he would soon learn, straightened her shoulders. "Our mom needs an operation for her heart. It costs a lot of money, and insurance won't pay for all of it." She spoke with the careful precision of a child repeating words she'd overheard adults say. Jack nodded vigorously. "We've made $43.27 so far." He pointed to a small jar partially filled with coins and crumpled bills. "We only need $49,956.73 more." Something tightened in Marcus's chest, an unfamiliar sensation he couldn't immediately identify. These children, with their simple math and complicated love, stood in the rain believing they could save their mother through sheer determination. "How much for the car?" Marcus asked, reaching for his wallet. Emma and Jack exchanged glances, having clearly not prepared for this moment. $50? Emma suggested tentatively. $500, Marcus countered, pulling out 5 crisp $100 bills. Jack's eyes widened. That's too much, mister." "It's a rare model," Marcus said seriously. "Worth every penny." As he handed over the money, Emma's small fingers closed around the bills with reverence. "This is going to help Mom so much," she whispered, her eyes shining with hope that pierced through Marcus's carefully constructed defenses. Jack carefully placed the toy car in its original box, which they'd kept protected under their makeshift shelter. "Take good care of it, okay? Grandpa said it was magic and would always protect us." Before Marcus could respond, a woman's voice cut through the rain. "Jack, Emma, what are you doing?" A slender woman in scrubs and a rain-spattered jacket ran toward them, her chestnut hair escaping from a hasty ponytail. Even from a distance, Marcus could see the twins' eyes in her face, along with the same determined set to her jaw. But there was something else. A pallor beneath her flushed cheeks. A slight breathlessness that seemed excessive even for someone running. "Mom!" the twins called in unison, their expressions shifting from pride to uncertainty. Eliza Reynolds stopped abruptly when she saw Marcus, recognition flashing across her features. Everyone in Seattle knew Marcus Blackwood's face from magazine covers and charity galas. "What's going on here?" she demanded, her voice carrying both authority and fear as she pulled her children protectively to her sides. Her eyes darted from the money in Emma's hand to the toy car box Marcus held, and her expression hardened into something between suspicion and mortification. Marcus Blackwood, who negotiated billion-dollar deals without breaking a sweat, suddenly found himself at a loss for words as the fierce gaze of a protective mother locked onto his. "Mom, we sold Grandpa's car," Emma announced, holding up the money with pride that quickly faltered as she registered her mother's expression. "We're helping with your heart operation," Jack added defensively. Eliza's face paled further. "My what?" Her eyes darted to Marcus, humiliation and anger flashing across her features. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Blackwood. My children shouldn't have—" She reached for the money in Emma's hand. "We can't accept this." "They made a fair sale," Marcus replied, his voice measured. "The car is quite valuable." "Not $500 valuable," Eliza countered sharply, "and they had no right to sell it in the first place." As she tried to return the money, Marcus noticed her hand trembling slightly. The nurse's badge on her jacket read Seattle Memorial Pediatric Unit. "You work with children," he observed. "Yes, and I need to get mine home. Now." Eliza's tone left no room for argument as she pressed the bills into his hand. "Jack, Emma, apologize to Mr. Blackwood for wasting his time." The twins' crestfallen expressions triggered a memory Marcus had long suppressed. Suddenly he was 12 again, standing beside his sister's hospital bed, emptying his piggy bank onto the sterile sheets. "This will help with the treatments, right, Mom?" he'd asked, so certain his saved allowance would make a difference. His mother's face had worn the same expression Eliza's did now, that devastating mixture of love, pride, and heartbreak. "They weren't wasting my time," Marcus said firmly, refusing to take the money. "And I want the car." Eliza's jaw tightened. Mr. Blackwood, I don't know what you think is happening here, but we don't need charity. It's not charity if I'm purchasing something. It is when you're overpaying by hundreds of dollars. The twins watched this exchange with growing concern, Jack's arm protectively around Emma's shoulders. Eliza swayed slightly, catching herself against the makeshift shelter. For a brief moment, her carefully maintained facade cracked, revealing bone-deep exhaustion. 3 years earlier, Eliza had stood in her kitchen, reading the note her husband had left. "I can't do this anymore," it said. No explanation for abandoning his family, no apology for leaving her alone with 5-year-old twins and mounting medical bills from her recently diagnosed heart condition. She'd allowed herself exactly 10 minutes to cry before wiping her tears and making pancakes shaped like dinosaurs for the twins' breakfast. They wouldn't see her break, not then, not ever. "Mom needs a special operation," Emma explained earnestly to Marcus. "We heard Dr. Chen telling her it's experimental." She carefully enunciated each syllable. "You must stop," Eliza whispered, mortification coloring her cheeks. Marcus recognized the name immediately. Dr. Sarah Chen was a pioneering cardiologist whose research his foundation had funded. If she was recommending an experimental procedure, Eliza's condition was serious. "Insurance won't cover it," Jack added. "That's why we're helping." "That's enough," Eliza said firmly. "This isn't Mr. Blackwood's concern." Marcus studied her, the shadows beneath her eyes, the slight bluish tint to her lips that his years researching his sister's illness had taught him to recognize as oxygen deprivation. "Perhaps it could be," he suggested quietly. Eliza's expression hardened. "We've managed on our own for 3 years, Mr. Blackwood. We'll continue to do so." "Mom always says we don't need anyone's help," Jack stated proudly. Something in Marcus snapped. "Everyone needs help sometimes," he said, more sharply than intended. "Refusing it doesn't make you strong, it just makes you stubborn." Eliza's eyes flashed. "And throwing money at problems doesn't make you a hero. It just makes you rich." The words hung between them, raw and honest in a way Marcus rarely experienced. Most people told him what they thought he wanted to hear. Eliza Reynolds clearly wasn't most people. After a tense moment, Marcus placed the toy car box in Jack's hands. "Keep this. It was your grandfather's gift." Before Eliza could protest, he slipped his business card into the box and met her gaze directly. "When pride becomes more expensive than principles, my number is there." Without waiting for her response, Marcus turned and walked back to his waiting Bentley, leaving Eliza staring after him, the rain mingling with the tears she refused to acknowledge. 3 days after the encounter with Marcus Blackwood, Eliza moved through the pediatric ward with practiced efficiency, checking IV lines and updating charts. She'd taken an extra shift, again, pushing her body despite the warning signs she'd been trained to recognize in patients. "You should be resting, not working doubles," Dr. Chen admonished, catching Eliza as she leaned against the nurse's station, pressing a hand to her chest. "I'm fine," Eliza insisted, straightening. "Just need to catch my breath." Dr. Chen's expression remained skeptical. "The procedure we discussed isn't covered by insurance," Eliza finished. "I know, I'm working on it." What she didn't say was that she'd spent the previous night researching second mortgages on her already mortgaged home, or that she'd been skipping her medication to make it last longer, or that every time she looked at her twins, terror gripped her heart more painfully than any cardiac condition. As she reached for the next patient's chart, the room tilted sideways. Eliza heard Dr. Chen call her name, felt hands catching her as her legs gave way, and then darkness. At Westside Elementary, Jack and Emma sat side by side in the school office, their backpacks clutched tightly on their laps. The principal's sympathetic glances only increased their anxiety. "Your mom's going to be fine," Mrs. Patterson assured them. "She's just not feeling well. Your neighbor, Mrs. Gonzalez, is coming to pick you up." But the twins had overheard the phone conversation. Words like collapsed and cardiac event that they understood all too well from their mother's medical books. When Mrs. Patterson stepped out to make another call, Emma turned to Jack. "We need to call him." Jack nodded, already reaching into his backpack for the toy car box where they'd hidden Marcus's card despite their mother's instruction to throw it away. Emma dialed the number on the school phone while Jack kept watch at the door. "Blackwood," a deep voice answered on the second ring. "Mr. Richmond?" Emma's voice trembled. "It's Emma Reynolds. My mom's really sick. She fell down at the hospital and—" Her voice broke. Jeff took the phone. "They won't tell us anything, but we heard them say cardiac. That means heart. Can you help us, please?" There was a brief silence before Marcus responded, his voice suddenly alert. "Where are you now?" "School. Westside Elementary." "Stay there. I'm coming." 20 minutes later, the school office door opened to reveal Marcus Blackwood in a perfectly tailored suit, his expression grave but determined. The office staff stared in shock as the billionaire CEO knelt before two elementary school children. "Tell me everything you know," he said gently. By the time Mrs. Gonzalez arrived, Marcus had already made arrangements. With a combination of his foundation's connection to the hospital and his personal authority, he secured permission to take the twins to see their mother, promising to return them to Mrs. Gonzalez's care afterward. What would you do if you had the power to help someone who refused your help? Would you respect their wishes and walk away, or would you find another way to offer assistance? Share your thoughts in the comments below, because sometimes the most important decisions we make are when to persist and when to step back. At Seattle Memorial, Marcus strode through the corridors with a twin holding each hand. Hospital staff recognized him immediately. The Blackwood Foundation had funded the new pediatric wing, but his focus remained entirely on the children beside him. Outside the cardiac care unit, Dr. Chin intercepted them. "Mr. Blackwood?" she said, surprise evident in her voice. "I didn't realize you knew Nurse Reynolds." "How is she?" Marcus asked, ignoring the implied question. Dr. Chen's expression grew serious. "Stable, but the episode confirmed what we suspected. Without the valve procedure we discussed, her condition will continue to deteriorate." "Then do it," Marcus stated simply. "It's experimental. Insurance won't. My foundation will cover it, all of it." The twins' faces lit up with hope, but Dr. Chen shook her head. "Ms. Reynolds has already refused. She was quite adamant." Marcus's jaw tightened. "Let me talk to her." Inside the hospital room, Eliza looked smaller than he remembered, her skin nearly as pale as the sheets. Her eyes widened when she saw Marcus entering with her children. "What are you doing here?" she demanded, though the effect was diminished by the weakness in her voice. The twins rushed to her bedside while Marcus remained at the door. "You collapsed, Mom," Jack said, his voice trembling. "We were scared." "So we called Mr. Blackwood," Emma finished. "He brought us to see you." Eliza's gaze shifted to Marcus, a complex mixture of emotions crossing her face. "Thank you for bringing my children, but you had no right to involve yourself in my medical decisions." Marcus stepped closer. "Your children involved me when they had no one else to call. They have plenty of people." "None with the resources to help you," Marcus interrupted. "Dr. Chen told me you refused the procedure." Eliza's eyes flashed with familiar fire. "Because I won't accept charity. Even at the cost of your life? What happens to them if you die from stubborn pride?" The words hung in the air, harsh but necessary. The twins' eyes filled with tears. "You don't understand," Eliza whispered. "I understand better than you think," Marcus replied, his voice suddenly raw. "My sister died when I was 12. Experimental treatment might have saved her, but we couldn't afford it. I swore if I ever had the means, I wouldn't let money stand between someone and their life." He moved closer, his composure cracking. "I was helpless then. I'm not now. Let me do this. Not for you, but for them." He nodded toward the twins. "And for the boy I was, watching his sister die." Tears spilled down Eliza's cheeks as she looked from Marcus to her children and back again. For the first time, she saw beyond his wealth to the wounded child still living inside the powerful man. "I've always handled everything alone," she whispered. "I don't know how to accept help." Marcus's expression softened. Maybe it's time to learn. The surgery lasted 8 hours. Marcus remained in the waiting room the entire time. Laptop open but largely ignored as he fielded concerned questions from Jack and Emma. They'd insisted on staying despite Mrs. Gonzalez's offer to take them home, their small faces solemn with worry. "Is Mom going to have a zipper on her chest like Jimmy in my class?" Emma asked, her fingers tracing an imaginary line down her sternum. "Something like that," Marcus answered honestly. "It'll heal, but she'll always have a scar to remind her how strong she is." Jack looked up from the toy car he'd been clutching. "Will it hurt?" "Yes," Marcus said, refusing to lie. "But they'll give her medicine, and each day it'll hurt a little less." When Dr. Chen finally emerged, her tired smile told them everything before she spoke a word. "She's going to be okay." Over the next 2 weeks, a routine developed. Marcus would arrive at the hospital each morning before his workday began, coffee in hand, black for himself, hazelnut with cream for Eliza. The twins would join them after school, backpacks laden with homework and drawings for their mother. "You don't have to come every day," Eliza told him on the 5th morning, though her eyes betrayed her pleasure at seeing him. "I know," Marcus replied simply, handing her the coffee. Their fingers brushed, lingering a moment longer than necessary. Neither acknowledged the contact, but a subtle flush colored Eliza's cheeks as she looked away. On day 7, Marcus arrived to find Eliza attempting to review medical journals despite her fatigue. "Old habits," she explained sheepishly. "I hate feeling unproductive." Instead of the lecture she expected, Marcus pulled a chair beside her bed and opened his laptop. "I have investor calls in 20 minutes. Mind if I work here?" They sat in companionable silence, the barrier between their worlds thinning with each shared hour. The twins' relationship with Marcus evolved even more rapidly. On day 10, he arrived to find them waiting in the hallway outside Eliza's room. "Mom's getting her bandages changed," Jack explained. "So we're having a car race," Emma added, pointing to the toy Aston Martin and a small plastic ambulance racing down the corridor's gentle slope. Marcus set down his briefcase and knelt beside them. "The Aston has better aerodynamics, but the ambulance has weight advantage." The children looked at him with newfound respect. "Want to try?" Jack offered, holding out the toy car. When Eliza's door opened minutes later, she found the formidable CEO of Blackwood Technologies lying on his stomach in the hospital corridor, cheering as his car raced against Emma's ambulance, while Jack kept score. Something shifted in her chest that had nothing to do with her recent surgery. By the 3rd week, as discharge plans were being discussed, Eliza noticed how Marcus had seamlessly integrated into their lives. He knew Emma preferred her sandwiches cut diagonally, and that Jack needed to finish his math homework before reading. He'd arranged for a tutor to help them keep up with schoolwork, and somehow convinced the hospital to allow the twins' goldfish to temporarily reside on Eliza's windowsill. "He's different with you guys," Dr. Chen commented one evening after Marcus had left with the twins to get dinner. "I've worked with his foundation for years. He's always been generous but distant, clinical." Eliza watched through the window as Marcus helped the twins into his car, making sure their seatbelts were secure. "He lost his sister when he was young," she said softly. "I think he's been trying to save her ever since." The night before her discharge, Marcus arrived after the twins had gone home with Mrs. Gonzalez. The privacy created a new tension between them, possibilities hanging in the air unspoken. "I have a proposition," Marcus said, uncharacteristically hesitant. Eliza raised an eyebrow. "That sounds ominous." "A job offer," he clarified. "The Blackwood Foundation is launching a new pediatric health initiative. We need someone with medical expertise and a personal understanding of the challenges families face." "You want me to work for you?" Eliza asked, surprised. "With me," Marcus corrected. "The position comes with flexible hours, comprehensive benefits, and salary that reflects your expertise." Eliza studied him, searching for pity but finding only respect. "Why me?" Marcus moved closer, his voice softening. "Because you're the most qualified person I know. Because you understand both the medical and human aspects of healthcare. Because—" He hesitated, then continued more quietly. I've never met anyone who fights as fiercely for what matters." The air between them charged with unspoken feelings as their eyes held. Marcus's gaze dropped briefly to her lips before he stepped back, professional demeanor returning. "Think about it," he said, moving toward the door. "No pressure." But as he glanced back at her, the look they shared said everything their words had not. Whatever was building between them had nothing to do with charity and everything to do with connection. 6 weeks after her surgery, Eliza stood in the gleaming offices of the Blackwood Foundation, surveying the pediatric initiative's newly assembled team. Her heart, now functioning properly thanks to the innovative valve procedure, beat a little faster as Marcus entered the conference room. "The Reynolds Protocol," he announced, unveiling the program's official name on the presentation screen. "A comprehensive approach to supporting families through pediatric health crises." Eliza's colleagues applauded while she stared in surprise. Marcus caught her eye across the room, the corner of his mouth lifting in a private smile that sent warmth cascading through her. Later, alone in his office, she confronted him. "You named it after me? Without asking?" "Technically after your family," Marcus replied, his usual confidence tinged with uncertainty. "Is that okay?" The genuine question in his eyes disarmed her. This wasn't the imperious CEO who commanded boardrooms, but a man seeking her approval. "It's unexpected," she admitted. "But yes, it's okay." Their hands brushed as she accepted the program portfolio, and neither pulled away immediately. The contact lingered, electric and promising. That night, Eliza sat on her porch swing after putting the twins to bed, her thoughts circling back to Marcus as they increasingly did. "What am I doing?" she wondered. "He lives in a different universe, private jets and penthouses. I clip coupons and buy generic cereal." Yet in the weeks they'd worked together, she'd glimpsed the man beneath the wealth. His unexpected patience with the twins, his genuine passion for helping others, the vulnerability that flashed in his eyes when he spoke of his sister. Across the city in his penthouse, Marcus stood at the window. Seattle's lights spread before him like earthbound stars. The empire he'd built should have been enough, yet he found himself checking his phone, hoping for a message from Eliza. She deserves better than a man who forgot how to feel, he thought. Someone uncomplicated, unbroken. Yet he couldn't deny how alive he felt in her presence, how her straightforward honesty and fierce independence challenged him in ways no one had dared in years. The Foundation's annual gala arrived, transforming the Seattle Art Museum into a glittering showcase of wealth and philanthropy. Eliza felt out of place despite her carefully chosen navy gown, a splurge she'd justified as a professional necessity. "You look beautiful," Marcus murmured when she arrived, his eyes darkening as they took in the elegant simplicity of her appearance. Throughout the evening, he remained attentive without being obvious, introducing her to key donors as the brilliant mind behind our most promising initiative. During dinner, Eliza found herself seated beside Vivian Hargrove, a major donor whose diamond bracelet probably cost more than Eliza's annual salary. "So refreshing to see Marcus hiring. Diverse backgrounds," Vivian remarked with a thin smile. "Though I imagine it must be quite the adjustment for you, dear, from changing bedpans to changing policy." Before Eliza could respond, Marcus's voice cut through the conversation, steel beneath its cultured surface. "Ms. Reynolds was saving lives while most of us in this room were merely accumulating wealth," he stated, loud enough for nearby tables to hear. "Her background is precisely why our work will actually matter. Excuse us." He guided Eliza away with a gentle hand at the small of her back. "You didn't have to do that," she whispered. "Yes, I did." His eyes held hers with unexpected intensity. "These people think money equals value. You've shown me it doesn't." Later, as the gala wound down, they escaped to the museum's sculpture garden. Seattle's skyline provided a glittering backdrop as they walked in comfortable silence. "Thank you," Eliza said finally. "Not just for tonight. For everything." Marcus stopped, turning to face her. "I should be thanking you, you and the twins. You've reminded me what matters." The space between them seemed to disappear as he stepped closer. His hand rose to gently brush a strand of hair from her face, lingering against her cheek. "Eliza," he whispered, his voice rough with emotion. She tilted her face upward, heart racing as his lips lowered toward hers. "Mom, Mr. Marcus, look what we found." They jumped apart as Jack and Emma raced toward them, having escaped their babysitter in the children's activity room. Emma proudly held up an origami crane while Jack beamed beside her. The interrupted moment hung between them, both frustrating and sweetly promising. Marcus's soft laugh held no regret, only warmth, as he knelt to admire the children's creation. Watching him with her twins, Eliza realized that opening her heart to this man required more courage than all the years she'd spent facing life alone. Independence had been her armor, but vulnerability might be her greatest strength. 3 months into their undefined relationship, Eliza and Marcus had fallen into a comfortable rhythm. Weeknight dinners at her modest home, where Marcus learned to cook simple meals under the twins' enthusiastic guidance. Weekend outings that carefully balanced educational experiences with pure fun. Professional collaboration that had already helped dozens of families navigate medical crises. Then came the envelope. Eliza found it while organizing the paperwork Marcus had brought over. An account statement from Blackwood Financial Services addressed to custodian for Jack and Emma Reynolds. Her hands trembled as she read the details. Fully funded college accounts for both children, established weeks ago without her knowledge. The balance in each already exceeded what she could save in a decade. When Marcus arrived that evening, her cold greeting immediately alerted him that something was wrong. "You set up accounts for my children without discussing it with me?" she said, sliding the statement across the kitchen counter. Marcus frowned, genuinely confused by her anger. "It's just college funding. Every child deserves education." "That's not the point." Eliza's voice rose despite her effort to stay calm. "You made a major decision about my children without consulting me." "I was trying to help." "No, you were controlling the situation, just like you control everything else in your life." Marcus stiffened. "That's unfair." "Is it?" Eliza challenged. "You're so used to your money-solving problems that you never stop to consider how it feels to be on the receiving end, to have someone else decide what's best for you and your family." The words struck deeper than she intended. Marcus's expression closed, the vulnerability she'd grown to cherish disappearing behind the CEO mask. "I apologize for overstepping," he said formally. "I'll have the accounts closed immediately." Marcus, but he was already heading for the door, his rigid posture revealing how deeply her words had wounded him. For a week, they communicated only through terse work emails. The twins noticed immediately, their questions about Marcus's absence becoming increasingly difficult to deflect. At the foundation, colleagues walked on eggshells around them, sensing the tension between the normally synchronized pair. Alone in her bedroom, Eliza confronted the real source of her anger. Fear. Marcus's generosity threatened the careful independence she'd built. Accepting his help with her medical bills had been necessary for survival, but this felt different. Like surrendering control of her children's future. Meanwhile, in his penthouse, Marcus grappled with his own revelation. He'd approached the relationship like a business problem, identifying needs and allocating resources to address them. But Eliza and the twins weren't a corporate acquisition or a foundation initiative. They were people with dignity and agency. Qualities he respected in theory, but had inadvertently dismissed in practice. On day 8 of their standoff, Marcus received an official-looking envelope decorated with dinosaur stickers. Inside was a document titled Family Contract in the twins' careful handwriting. The terms were simple. 1. Important decisions must be discussed by all family members. 2. Everyone gets to share their feelings without being interrupted. 3. No one can leave when they're mad without saying when they'll come back. 4. Family means people who choose each other every day, even when it's hard. At the bottom were 3 signatures: Jack Reynolds, Emma Reynolds, and a blank line labeled Marcus Blackwood, if you want to be family. Attached was a note in Emma's handwriting. "Mom has a copy too. Meeting at our house tonight at 6 o'clock, don't be late." That evening Marcus arrived to find the dining room transformed into a meeting room, complete with name cards and the twins wearing their school uniforms to be professional. Eliza stood awkwardly by the table, her eyes revealing sleepless nights that matched his own. "The Reynolds family meeting is now in session," Jack announced, banging a toy gavel. For the next hour, guided by the twins' surprisingly insightful questions, Marcus and Eliza confronted the real issues beneath their conflict. His need to protect stemming from childhood helplessness, her fear of dependency rooted in abandonment, their shared struggle to balance independence with connection. "Mom says family means having each other's backs," Emma stated. "But we think it also means talking about important stuff together." Jack nodded solemnly, like college funds and feelings and stuff. Their simple wisdom cut through the adults' complicated defenses, forcing both to recognize what truly mattered, not pride or control, but the family they were building together. Do you believe people from different worlds can build a lasting relationship, or are some differences too fundamental to overcome? Subscribe and hit the notification bell to see more stories that explore this question, because sometimes the greatest love stories happen where we least expect them. 6 months after the family contract meeting, game night had become a sacred tradition in the Reynolds household. Every Friday, phones were silenced, work was forgotten, and the dining table transformed into an arena for fierce but loving competition. "Uno," Emma declared triumphantly, placing her penultimate card on the pile. "Not so fast," Marcus countered, laying down a draw 4 with exaggerated villainy that made the twins giggle. Eliza watched them from the kitchen as she prepared hot chocolate, her heart full. The man who once intimidated CEOs and politicians now sat cross-legged on her living room floor, completely invested in a children's card game. The transformation wasn't just in him. All of them had grown, learning to balance independence with the vulnerability of true connection. As Emma finally won the game, Marcus caught Eliza's eye across the room. Something in his expression made her pulse quicken. "Before we start the next round," he said, "I need to get something from my coat." When he returned, he was carrying the vintage toy car box that had brought them together that rainy day nearly a year ago. "I believe this belongs to you two," he said, handing it to the twins. Jack opened it curiously. "But we sold this to you." "I was just keeping it safe," Marcus replied, his voice uncharacteristically nervous. "Look inside." Emma gasped as she discovered a small velvet box nestled where the car should have been. The twins exchanged knowing glances before handing it to their mother. Eliza's hands trembled as Marcus knelt beside her. "The day I saw 2 determined children selling their most precious possession to save someone they loved, I had no idea my own life was about to change," he said softly. "You taught me that real strength isn't in what we can do alone, but in what we choose to build together." He opened the box to reveal a simple but elegant diamond ring. "Eliza Reynolds, will you and your extraordinary children allow me to be part of your family, officially?" Tears glistened in Eliza's eyes as she looked from Marcus to her children and back again. "On one condition," she whispered. "Anything. That we build our life as equals, partners in everything." Marcus's smile was radiant as he nodded. "I wouldn't have it any other way." As he slipped the ring onto her finger, the twins erupted in cheers, tackling them both in a group hug that toppled them onto the carpet in a tangle of laughter and happy tears. 3 months later, the Seattle Memorial Hospital garden bloomed with spring flowers as Eliza and Marcus exchanged vows beneath an arch of roses. Dr. Chen stood among the guests, alongside the families helped by the Reynolds protocol. Jack and Emma, dressed in matching blue outfits, proudly presented the rings. In a glass display case at the reception sat the vintage toy car, now a symbol of their journey from strangers to family. Beside it, a small plaque read, "Sometimes the things we think we're selling turn out to be the things that save us." As Marcus and Eliza shared their first dance as husband and wife, the twins joining them halfway through. The circle of their story completed itself. A chance encounter in the rain had transformed 4 separate lives into one shared future. Their pasts, with all their pain and struggle, weren't erased by their love story. Instead, those experiences had shaped them into people capable of recognizing and cherishing what they'd found in each other. Not a fairy tale ending, but something far more valuable, a real beginning.